You see, they finally figured it out, didn't they? The little secret you've been keeping. The voice that whispers in your head when the world tells you to give up. They found out who's been coaching you. Me. The madness, the fire, the will that doesn't ask for permission, and now they're terrified. Not because you're dangerous, but because you've started believing in yourself. Because once you realize you never needed their approval, once you start playing by your own rules, oh, that's when the game changes. That's when chaos becomes power. True strength does not come from how loudly others praise you or how much recognition you receive. It comes from the quiet, unshakable belief that you are capable, even when no one else sees it. The moment you stop waiting for permission to be great, you begin to understand what real power feels like. Self-belief is not arrogance. It is clarity. The kind of clarity that comes from knowing who you are, what you want, and what you are willing to fight for. When you depend on approval from others, you hand them the keys to your confidence. You let their opinions decide how far you go and what you can achieve. The world, however, rarely cheers for you at the start. People applaud once you've already made it, but until then, they question, they doubt, and sometimes they mock. If you build your confidence on their applause, you'll crumble when the silence comes. That's why self-belief must come from within. It must be born in the dark, when no one's watching, when the odds are stacked against you. Believing in yourself means trusting your vision even when others don't understand it. It means standing tall in rooms that want to shrink you. It's about taking the risk, facing failure, and refusing to let that failure define you. Every great achiever, every revolutionary thinker, has been called crazy, foolish, or delusional at some point, until the world caught up with their courage. Self-belief is what carries you through that phase of misunderstanding and isolation. You have to become your own coach, your own cheerleader, your own fuel. When your inner voice says, "Keep going," you listen, not because someone told you to, but because you've learned that persistence builds miracles. Once you stop begging for validation, you start creating your own version of success. That's the moment people begin to notice. And that's the moment they start to fear what you're becoming. Because confidence, real confidence, is contagious and unstoppable. In the end, self-belief isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you never needed them to believe in you in the first place. You were enough all along. You just had to realize it. Your inner voice, that quiet whisper, that spark of madness, is your greatest coach. It doesn't speak to please anyone. It speaks to remind you of who you truly are when the world tries to make you forget. This voice doesn't flatter or comfort. It challenges you, pushes you, and sometimes even argues with you. But that's what real growth sounds like. The inner coach is not polite, it's powerful. It teaches you to rise every time life knocks you down, to keep moving forward, even when no one claps, and to find strength in your solitude. Most people ignore that voice because it's uncomfortable. It demands honesty, discipline, and courage, things that are often buried under fear, doubt, and routine. The outside world offers easier guidance, trends, opinions, and shortcuts. But that's noise. Your inner voice cuts through it. It reminds you that you already have what it takes. You just have to listen. Every setback becomes a lesson, every scar a story, Every failure a new chapter written by your resilience. Coaching yourself means taking responsibility for your mindset. It means realizing no one is coming to save you. And that's the most liberating truth of all. Once you understand that, you stop blaming circumstances, people, or timing. You begin to take control of your own narrative. You don't wait for a mentor to tell you when to start. You become the mentor. You start talking to yourself differently, not as a critic, but as a believer. The moment you start trusting that inner coach, the world changes. Challenges don't seem as big. Doubts don't echo as loud. You realize that greatness isn't taught, it's remembered. Because deep down, you've always known who you could be. That's why others get uncomfortable when they see you evolve. They can sense that something inside you has awakened, and that awakening doesn't come from luck or chance. It comes from listening to that relentless, untamed part of your soul that refuses to quit. People don't fear your success. They fear your independence. The moment you stop relying on their approval, their opinions, their validation, you become unpredictable. That's what truly terrifies them. Because as long as you need them, they can control you. They can shape your thoughts, direct your choices, and limit your reach. But once you decide to stand alone, once you realize you don't need permission to exist loudly, you break their hold over you. You become untamed, unstoppable, and ungovernable. Society is built on silent control. It teaches you to fit in, to follow the rules, to seek approval like a currency. And for a while, that feels safe. Until you realize that safety is the same thing as confinement. Independence threatens that system. When you start thinking for yourself, people call you rebellious. When you stop conforming, they call you arrogant. But what they're really saying is, you're not easy to control anymore. That's why they react with fear, judgment, or resistance. It's not your confidence they hate. It's what it represents. Freedom, fear of independence, is everywhere. In workplaces, relationships, even friendships. The world feels comfortable when you doubt yourself, because your uncertainty maintains the balance of power. But the moment you trust your own voice, everything shifts. You start saying, no, without guilt. You start walking away from things that don't serve you. You start defining your worth instead of waiting for someone else to. That's when the world realizes it can't manipulate you anymore. And yes, it can get lonely at first. Independence often means walking paths few have the courage to take. But soon, that loneliness turns into peace. A kind of peace that no one can give or take away. Because you finally know who you are. And once you know that, fear loses its grip. So when they look at you with suspicion, when they whisper about how you've changed, smile. They're not scared of what you've become. They're scared of what you've stopped needing. Your freedom reminds them of their chains, and nothing frightens the world more than someone who can't be controlled. Rules. They tell you to follow them, to stay in line, to color inside the lines drawn long before you arrived. But what if greatness lives outside those lines? What if every boundary was meant to be questioned, tested, and, when necessary, broken? The truth is, the system loves obedience. It rewards those who comply and silences those who dare to think differently. But every revolution, every innovation, every legend was born from someone who decided that the rules didn't apply to them. Breaking the rules isn't about chaos for chaos's sake. It's about liberation. It's realizing that most of the limits you've accepted were never real. They were designed to keep you manageable, predictable, small. When you stop letting others define what's right for you, you reclaim the power to define it yourself. That's when life starts to expand, not according to society's blueprint, but according to your own. You see, those who make history are rarely the ones who play it safe. They're the ones who ask, why not? They take the risk. They fail spectacularly. They learn. And they rise again, sharper, stronger, wiser. Every rule you break teaches you something about yourself, about your limits, your courage, your potential. And that's what terrifies the world. Someone who is no longer afraid to question it. When you break the rules, you challenge the comfort of those still living inside them. People will call you reckless, arrogant, even dangerous. But deep down, they envy you. Because you have done what they only dream of. You've chosen freedom over approval. You've chosen authenticity over conformity. The moment you decide to stop following their script, your real story begins. The critics will shout. The doubters will sneer. But none of that matters, because while they're busy defending their walls, you're already walking past them. Breaking the rules isn't rebellion. It's evolution. It's the point where you stop surviving and start creating. Chaos. That word makes most people uncomfortable. They hear it and think of destruction, confusion, loss of control. But what they don't understand is that chaos is where transformation begins. Every breakthrough, every rebirth, every reinvention starts in the middle of disorder. Because when everything falls apart, you're forced to see what truly matters. You're stripped of illusions, of comfort, of excuses, and in that raw state, you discover who you really are. People spend their lives avoiding chaos, clinging to routines and predictability because it feels safe. But safety rarely leads to greatness. Growth is born in discomfort. The fire that forges strength burns hot, and it doesn't care if you're ready. Chaos tears down your plans, your pride, your certainty. And what's left behind is truth. The truth that you are stronger than you thought. The truth that you can start again from nothing. Think of it this way. A storm doesn't destroy the ocean, it reshapes it. In the same way, chaos doesn't ruin you, it reveals you. It tests your balance, your patience, your persistence. Every challenge, every heartbreak, every failure, that's chaos inviting you to evolve. The ones who embrace it don't crumble, they transform. They learn to dance with uncertainty instead of fearing it. They realize that control was never the goal. Adaptation was. When you stop running from chaos, it stops chasing you. You begin to see opportunity inside the madness. You learn to use pain as fuel, fear as focus, and failure as instruction. That's when chaos stops being an enemy and becomes an ally. A teacher disguised as destruction. And that's what frightens people. Because once you've learned to thrive in chaos, you become unstoppable. The world can no longer shake you with storms, because you've already learned to build in the rain. You understand that every ending is just a beginning dressed in disaster. So don't curse the chaos. Welcome it. Let it tear down what's weak and watch what's real rise from the ruins. That's where your power lives. Not in the calm, but in the storm. Awareness is the moment everything changes. It's when you stop moving blindly through life and finally see, not just the world, but yourself. The second you become aware of your own potential, You shift from being a follower of circumstance to a creator of destiny. Awareness is more than knowledge, it's awakening. It's the sudden, electric realization that you were never powerless. You were just distracted, conditioned, and underestimated. Most people live asleep. They let the noise of society drown out their instincts, their passions, their purpose. They chase validation, success, and acceptance without ever stopping to ask, why? Awareness cuts through that fog. It exposes the illusions that have kept you small. The belief that you're not ready, not worthy, not enough. Once those lies crumble, you see the truth. You've been capable all along. That moment of clarity is terrifying for the world around you, because a person who's awake cannot be controlled. You begin to notice manipulation disguised as advice, comfort disguised as control, rules disguised as truth. You start questioning everything, and that's when real growth begins. Awareness gives you the power to choose consciously, to act intentionally, to live deliberately. It doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means you stop running on autopilot. You start noticing patterns, the fears that keep returning, the limits you place on yourself, the opportunities you've been overlooking. And instead of reacting, you begin responding. You take ownership of your choices, your time, your energy. You stop being a passenger and become the driver. When awareness takes root, you can no longer unsee your power. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, think differently. Others may call it arrogance, but it's not. It's alignment. It's the calm confidence of someone who finally understands what they're capable of. And yes, that realization terrifies people who are still asleep. Because your light exposes their shadows, your courage highlights their fear, and your freedom reminds them of their chains. But that's not your burden to carry. It's your proof of evolution. Awareness isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of becoming unstoppable. Once you see your power clearly, the world can never make you forget it again.